So I've got a burning question for you that has actually been brewing for about 13 years. When I first met you, you were lecturing to a room of university students, and you said that you could read the body, that you and this was accessible to everyone. You had a level of sensitivity and clairsentience where you could give a person a reading whether you were in the room with them or not. And the audience kind of scoffed at that point and said, sure, you know. But you said that we're living in an energetic soup. It's a continuum. So you can feel what happens with another person. And you actually said, I'll give a reading to anyone in this room right now. And you read this woman put her hand up, and you gave her a reading that was very, very detailed in terms of that she had lower back problems you even gave the vertebrae numbers between this and that. And you also said that the root cause of that physical problem was actually in how she hadn't dealt with the divorce of her parents around the age of 13 or 14. And I'm sitting there going, what? You know, like, and then you didn't ask her to actually confirm whether the reading was true or not. Everyone just got up and got their textbooks and walked out of the door. I actually went and chased up that woman in the hallway. And I said, well, was it true, what he said? And she looked at me and she said, I've never been more accurately read in my life. And she said the depth of it was incredible, and she walked away. And there was a few things that confounded me. One, that nobody had actually chased it up and said, is what we saw what we just saw? But the other thing was that you've said in later years you're not psychic. So what is that ability to read people like that? And is it accessible to us all? Are we actually functioning at a lot less of a awareness than we could be?
Yeah, look, at the age of 35, I went back to being the first 5 years of my life. And we're all born clairsentient, and it's the ability to not be modeled by the demands of physical life alone. And so there's a physical responsibility to life. Let's say in your first 5 years, you learn to do your shoelace, you learn to walk, you learn to crawl, you learn to sit, you learn to make your bed. You have to learn to feed yourself, have breakfast. You know, all the demands that physicality asks you to be part of. But also there is a inner being that is very alive and very aware of life from a different perspective. We see and feel life at the same thing. So our eyes are secondary to what we are feeling, and it's called clairsentience, the ability to clearly distinguish and express what is being felt. Now, we are living in a endless ocean of energy. You called it a continuum or a soup, but it's like living underwater. It's in the continuous motion and repose rhythm of energy that we are living in. Everybody feels energy, and is because it's passing through them. What we do is we diminish our power to understand it because we deny our awareness to the fact. And that is a game that we play as human beings, because we think we have to conform to the demands of the physical life by excluding the more subtle energetic aspects of life. It's like it's been set up that way. All I did was say, okay, I can commit to life and be committed in the physical sense and do up my shoelaces and make my bed and do everything, but I'm not going to discount what I feel. I'm not going to discount the subtleties that I understand people are and people to be. Horribly so, at the age of 9, I lost that when I dedicated myself to sport and being competitive, because that's the only way I could have survived through school, being a little bit too sensitive to a lot of the pressures and bullying that was going on at the time. But I brought that back to myself around the age of 29, 30, and slowly that increased, hitting a peak at the age of 34 and a half, 35, where essentially I returned to being the young boy that I was, in the sense of my openness to the subtleties that I understand life by. But this story is not unique. Everybody can do it. And I know that because I can feel the fact that everybody can do it. And so it's very simple to feel another person and have no judgment, no critique, but actually feel the energy that they are first, which is always an exquisiteness, and from there read the point that they don't live that in their lives. So what I do is I feel the exquisiteness first, then read any point in their body, or can feel or sense any point in their body where they are not living that exquisiteness. And sometimes you can pinpoint it down to a vertebra, to a little finger, to an organ in the body. It's not a big deal. It's not an ability. It's just an innateness that we have, and it's definitely not a psychic ability.
I've heard you talk about it being like reading Braille. So when you're attuned to feeling, to having the language, I suppose, of what the energy is you're feeling, because you're saying we're feeling energy all the time, but we don't often allow ourselves to give it voice, even to ourselves. But, you know, when you start to awaken that sense that we are feeling energy all the time, you do start to notice what you're clocking. And I imagine that the more you go there, the more you actually get to read. So when you feel that there's a spot in a person's body, say, that isn't the exquisiteness that they naturally are, is that kind of like a sense of the energy that you can actually read it to what's being held in the body at different parts?
You can't read it without the fact that you're both sharing the same energy. So it's been constantly communicated. You can't shut it off. You can only just stop being aware of it. You cannot stop it. You can only stop yourself, or you can only diminish how aware you are. You can't even actually stop the awareness. Everybody knows where you walk into a room and you sense a change. You can sense tension, you know, between two people, or you can sense peace and harmony, let's say. So we understand, this is not a language that is foreign to us. I'm just taking it to the level that we all can take it to. And so the key is, I'm not a medical intuitive, I'm not a psychic, I'm not any of that. It's very, very simple. We can all do it. It's you know, it's secondhand. It's very simple to do. But I've done thousands upon thousands and thousands and thousands of readings, and every single person has said, that makes sense. And that's a common response that I get, and there's been a couple of, I get quoted a lot as being the man that makes a lot of sense, and some people have called me the human whisperer as well. And so what it's about is allowing yourself a situation where there are no borders, no impediments, no brick walls. You feel other people in the beauty that they truly are, and therefore they are offering, and they don't even realize they're offering, an openness to themselves for you to be able to voice something that they're not even able to voice to themselves. But that is also communicated as, it's very loud and clear. It's like a blind person reading Braille. Reading energy is very, very clear. It's very, very simple. And
so you're saying that when you meet a person and you don't have those walls up, you don't have any judgment, there's a one-to-one connection with their exquisiteness, and the person's exquisiteness actually offers you back the reading? Would you say that? Like, have you been in situations where someone doesn't want to know what you have to say, and obviously do you respect that situation as well?
Well, I don't stop reading anybody because it's been communicated. I don't venture out to read. I receive the reading. Right. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's receiving the same. I then have to use discernment to say, is the person ready to hear back what they are communicating? And in that moment, I won't say anything. But that's not holding back. That's, I've been communicated that, yes, I'd like to know this, but at the same time, I don't want to know this. So, I hold back, I don't hold back, I just don't say it.
But it's a constant communication. People are constantly communicating because that exquisiteness is innate in everyone. So if you're connecting to that, then the exquisiteness is going to deliver those messages.
Energetically, you are never concealing what you are communicating. You can, with gestures on a physical level, conceal lots of things, but energetically, you cannot stop communicating what you are in truth communicating.
Yet we live in this ruse of this separation of, like, the flesh, of physical bodies, of you're sitting over there, I'm here, like I can be polished, I can communicate, but you're saying everything is completely transparent.
Absolutely. Now, look, imagine if to make this subject less light and a little more serious in the sense of how it can help society, because otherwise, what's the point? There's no point if there's no evolution. There's no point if it's not contributing to society. So imagine if a doctor was, as they are, trained in diagnosis. Imagine if they could add clairsentience and the ability to read energy and feel energy to that level of exquisite diagnosis that they already have, and understand the human dilemma from that perspective. That holistic approach would give them a much more in-depth insight into the problem to begin with. Now, it may not change surgery, it may not change the way they do their practical application of medicine, but to understand the condition helps them to communicate to the patient what the prognosis will be thereafter, ongoing for them.
That's a really great point, because humanity is in a dire situation, because the World Health Organization cites that 68% of people are dying from non-communicable lifestyle-related disease. So we're essentially killing ourselves with our bad habits. And any doctor can say, stop smoking, don't drink, and give all the good advice in the world, eat lighter, stuff like that. But we're not seeing a change. We're not seeing a turnaround. And I've spoken to a woman that's in rehabilitation with people that are chronically ill, and she says that you give them all the good advice in the world, they walk out the door and they keep doing their habits. But you've seen something very different. I know, because I am the recipient of this, you've inspired lifestyle change for me. You've inspired lifestyle change in my family, and I've seen it with hundreds of people, that they're actually reversing the trend on illness and disease. So this is somewhat of a phenomena in the current societal structure, in the culture that we're in, that this is actually, these trends are reversing. So what is the part that we're missing, that, because it's not just good advice, there's something else. And you've talked about the difference between inspiration and transformation, and in an earlier episode. Let's go there again and kind of unpack this a bit more.
Yeah, first and foremost, you must never convert anyone or transform them or get on their back or push them to do anything. What you need to do is tap into inspiration, and inspiration is the ability to breathe your own breath. In other words, to not have other demands or pressures that are outside of you asking you to become something you are not. So the true meaning of inspiration is to be able to be left alone to breathe your own breath, unimposed by the demands of society. So that's what I've always respected, that people have the power to change themselves and nobody can change you. And so what I try and do is diminish as much as possible the impediments. I do that by reading the energetic root cause of what those impediments may be. So for somebody, they're smoking a cigarette. Why do you need a trusted companion? And your trusted companion is your cigarette. It's your go-to friend. It's always loyal. It doesn't abuse you. It doesn't talk back. It's just there. It lights up. It spends a moment with you. It has a cup of tea with you, a cup of coffee, a piece of cake. It's always there. It can even go for a walk with you. It's beautiful, and it lets its presence know. It's called smoke, and it comes out of your mouth. So we can be lighthearted about it, but the fact is that we are seeking something that we can trust in moments where we feel that tension. And so we need to understand the root causes of the being that is under the tension that causes the human to have the condition. And that's where psychology is at. That's where we need to have the new forms of medicine, the new forms of approaching the problems of life. We have run out of time, Rebecca, and the rates of illness and disease are showing that we don't have time for solutions anymore. Time is up. We have run out of time. It's now about space. It's now about creating a society that's going to be the real deal and no longer have we got the time to placate, to diminish, or even reduce what is really going on. We need to address it. Otherwise, where we are going doesn't seem to be, at the moment, on the trajectory that we would like it to go. The World Health Organization are very much in the forefront of showing us via the statistics what is truly going on in our species, and it's not by any means a very successful species if those statistics are where they are.
I want to give a really practical example of this, because I come from a family of 6, and we were all middle class, doing well in terms of ticking certain boxes of the functional human being. But at the same time, you know, my dad was drinking 6 beers a night and getting by, and he was a friendly guy, nobody's problem, right? My sisters, myself, we're doing recreational drugs and drinking a lot, and all of this is under the guise of this is just normal life. But yet, if I look at what we would have become if we hadn't have made a change, we would have been an actual burden on the healthcare system. Because in 20, 30 years, the blowout of that lifestyle, the effect of that lifestyle would have meant that here we're a statistic adding to the problem that society has to carry, the burden that society has to carry. And we were considered, we could have got by. We could have got by without anyone batting an eyelid. Okay, occasional total blowouts with ridiculous binge drinking and drug abuse and stuff like that. But nothing that would have gone under the radar, and wouldn't have gone under the radar. And then, we met you, we met Universal Medicine, the practitioners that you've brought together there, and healing became possible. And that was first through my mother, who had done your healing courses. And the beauty of how she brought it to us was there was no judgment for our lifestyle. And that's something that you teach as well. And I remember my younger sister being at her first ever healing workshop with you, and she wanted to go to the pub at lunchtime because she was still very much in that battle. But and she held herself there, and she finished the course, and it was the beginning of an absolute inspiring change in her life. But in those early days, we'd come to a session with you, and we would have been on a bender the night before, and we were probably slightly drunk when we were in the session room. There wasn't judgment. So it's not about condemning anybody. It's not about condemning people's lifestyle, is it? That doesn't play a part in actual healing.
The key to truly helping another, and that is to inspire them to help themselves, is to not have judgment whatsoever. But better than that, and more importantly, crucial in fact, is to hold them in the beauty that they truly are. I saw society missing out on the Baldwin family. I saw the beauty in every single one of the characters that make up the Baldwin family that was presented to me, from your mum Kathleen, to your father, to your sisters, to your brother. And I saw a powerhouse there, a beauty as I see in everybody. And today we are enjoying the amazingness that is your father Andy, your mother Kathleen and her contribution, and your sisters are captains of industry in the fields of business. You are helping community people individually establish themselves. You're all now married into amazing relationships. And your brother Jonathan is a role model of how the future of men will be one day. You know, he's not holding back on his sensitivity and exquisiteness. So this family that was once flying under the radar because they were in self-abuse just like everybody else is today leading the way. And in many ways, they are too good to be true. But once upon a time, they were just your average self-abuse, dysfunctional family. That story is, I don't want to tell the story because I'm involved with it and I'm the one who did it, or the catalyst for the inspiration. through the teachings. But this is a phenomena. This needs to be studied. How is it that a family that was normal, in the sense that they were dysfunctional, are today, each and every single one of them, such an outstanding member of the community, and likewise married into amazing fruitful relationships that have brought in other partners that have been able to also aspire and inspire and contribute to the community. This is a phenomenon. This is a complete reverse of everything that the World Health Organization is saying humanity is heading. We are out of that bell curve. We are completely off the graph on society and what is actually going on. And this is a story that needs, it's worth telling. And we're not here beating up anything. We're not here making it up. The whole community has evidence of what the Baldwin family has, and their respective partners, husbands and wives, have been able to contribute.
This is just one story among hundreds. There's 600 people that have made these changes in their lives. That means that we're actually seeing a pocket of people that are not living separate from the world. They're inspiring others in turn. They're very much in life. They're very much in community. But they have made these changes, this inspirational change in their own life. And to me, that makes possible that it can look different. Life can look different. The trend is reversible. But that's through inspiration.
Yeah, and it's not limited to location. We have students in Minneapolis, in Colombia, in Norway, Denmark, England, France, Italy, New Zealand, in Asia, all over Australia, of course, and in Siberia, or one from Siberia. So there's quite a few people spread all over the world that are equally in the majesty as I described the Baldwin family to be, and have reversed their lives so much so that they are outstanding members of the community. Now, it's not so much what the amazingness that they are today, but where they came from and where they were, from drug addiction to dysfunction to complete misery, depression, chronic back pain. Some of them had all sorts of impairing conditions, and today they are either holding a much more reduced version of those conditions or none at all. So it's possible, but we need to understand that the beauty is there already, and we are destroying that beauty. So we need to bring inspiration back into that beauty to look after itself, to find a way to understand its own power, and to find a way to have its own worth, so that it can lift itself up on its own, so that it can start to understand that it has a responsibility to contribute towards the inspiration of others.
Because just to take it back a bit, like when you reeled off those list of dysfunctions that people had before they kind of came to the inspiration that universal medicine's offering, the drug addiction, the this, that and the other, it's important to note that that's not a group of misfits. That's actually the makeup of society. That's what you see everywhere. So this isn't a section of the population that is unique or was in need of desperate help more than anybody else. This is people from all different walks, representing all different levels of, various stages of trauma or distress or disease or illness. There's a cross-section of everyone, isn't there? It's not a particular to a group of people. It's actually a cross-section of society.
Look, when you cover the geography that our business covers, you can't localize the condition, and you can't stereotype our clientele. We've got a diverse call from a global platform, and it's showing that clearly. It's showing that the problem is everywhere, and it's not akin to any class, middle, high, upper, lower, middle, working class. It is everywhere. Our clients are some very, very rich people, and some not so well off people, and some middle class people, and very educated people to not so educated people. That doesn't fit the category here. The category here is we're human beings. And that's how I approach it. And there's a condition in the world that doesn't allow the being to be the human being it can be. And that's what we need to understand.
I want to talk a bit about the whole package, because there's one woman I know who had very advanced stage lung disease, and she's been supported by a doctor that's been inspired by you. And that doctor actually does bring that clairsentience and level of tenderness to his practice that gives that whole package picture. And he's top of his field. He's fantastic at what he does on a practical level. And you don't interfere with that. That is always, you're very clear about the fact you're pro-medicine, very clear about the benefits of medicine. But there we're seeing a picture where there's also an inspiration and an alchemy taking place because that doctor is bringing an extra tenderness to their practice. Can you talk a bit about that?
I won't specifically talk about the doctor himself, of course, and that's because it doesn't need highlighting in the sense that, a doctor who is offering tenderness is beautiful, and every one of his patients is going to benefit from that. But there are many other doctors and dentists that have been inspired by our work. It's every industry here. It's every position in the world. I can say that there's a whole swag of builders that are also tender now, applying tenderness and intimacy, camaraderie, and levels of decency and respect on the building sites that have also equally been inspired by our teachings. And they are changing the world out there as well. In no different terms that nurses are now walking the wards in exuberance of being a nurse and looking forward to doing all the tasks that come with being a nurse. And so we've inspired film directors, producers, camera people, models, actresses, actors, tradespeople, retailers, sales. Everyone has been inspired to change. And that's what grows community. That's what changes community. The quality of the being in the human being is what contributes to the lift of the society. And the crushing of the being of the human being is what diminishes society. And we need to understand this. It's not about solutions that address the extremes so that we don't look bad. It's about understanding that we are diminishing the exquisiteness that we are, and as a result of that, there's the tensions that lead to the misbehaviors and the forms of abuse that exist.
When you talk about how many different industries this is over, how many different people have taken this up, is this the depth of the name of the business itself? This is a universal medicine that people are bringing to their lives, their workplaces. So this seems to me that it is a model that needs to be studied because it is having a deep success in community. And this looks to me like a model of industry that actually enriches society, it enriches the human being. And surely that's worthy of further development, further investment, further study for how we can replicate it. What's the future for universal medicine in the way that it will continue its service?
First of all, the name universal medicine is short for a universal form of medicine. And medicine meaning anything that contributes to the evolution and to the inspiration, to the well-being of a person. It's not strictly limited to medicine as we understand it in the conventional sense, but medicine in the sense of philosophy. In other words, vitality, exuberance, brilliance, radiance, all of that we are as a human being. So that's that aspect. The universal part of that is that it's available to everybody because it's innate. It's not universal by the galaxies and the stars and the Milky Way, but universal in the sense that it's global and available to us all. So universal medicine, the two words are very loaded in the sense that they bring a wide scope of meaning to the fact that there is a different way. And look, we've achieved a lot, and our business model is based on love. So yes, love in the workplace. Our business model is based on people first. Our business model is one to be studied and has been. There's been a master's on dynamic organization dynamics, and it was based on the fact that our business model is based on love. And it's no theory, it's working. It's worked very, very well for us. And that then is able to bring that quality of service out to everybody. But Rebecca, this is not a big deal. Everybody can do this. We don't hold ourselves to be in any way, shape or form special. As you know, we're very, very humble. Humility is second nature to us, and we're just delivering it. We've just been delivering the goods for 16 years, and yeah, it's worth studying to understand how is it that this particular model is reversing the world trend. What is going on here? Is it special? Is it unique? No, it's very natural and normal, and it should be studied along those lines.
And also the fact that the power is in our hands, that's key to it, because if lifestyle-related disease is so high, with the emphasis on your lifestyle, then it's each of our personal responsibility that humanity is collectively in the state it's in, especially in the West with what we're seeing. So that's part of the model as well, because you never purport to actually heal anybody. It's about them bringing that responsibility.
As you know, I can be called a healer, and I will accept the title, but as I've always said very clearly, I've healed no one. Everyone heals themselves. Nobody can heal you. You heal yourself. But at the root of our problems is self-responsibility. We need to, it's all based on self-responsibility. If there's no self-responsibility, and the enemy of self-responsibility is to blame others. So we need to have self-responsibility to turn around the current state of the world.